Hi, and welcome to the 7th and last video in this Journey Through Poetry series. There will be a follow-up, more about that at the end of this video, but this is as far as I can take you on this introductory journey. If you've been following the series, you'll remember that in the first video I said that in many ways a poem is rather like a song without music. A lot of the atmosphere and the emotional effect of a song is created through the combination of the words with the music, whereas poets basically create their atmosphere and effect with the words alone. Okay, that's not 100% true. The lyric poets of ancient Greece and medieval Europe, for example, used music as an accompaniment to poetry. Many of Shakespeare's sonnets have been set to music, and there's jazz poetry, dub poetry, and so on. Mostly, though, we approach poetry without music, as spoken words or words written on a page. And what I want to talk about in this video is how poets bring their words to life without music. In the first video, we saw how Mick Jagger uses music to bring the words "I can't get no satisfaction" to life.
No satisfaction.
Well, today I want to make the point that he can't just use any music to bring his words to life. Let's try it, shall we? Let's take an old song. And let's put Mick Jagger's words to it. I can't get no satisfaction. I try and I try and I try. Okay, I think you can see that that just doesn't work. We can't put any words together with any music. We have to get the right words with the right music to get the right effect. And something similar is going on in poetry. Poets may not have music to bring their words to life, but they have a range of techniques that they can use, rhyme, rhythm, alliteration, and so on, to help to set the tone of their poems and create the effects they want. I've avoided talking about these effects so far because too much focus on these more technical aspects of poetry can have a negative effect. If we just look at a poem in terms of the techniques used in it, that can kill our enjoyment of the poem. It's a bit like saying, "Hey, I met a really interesting person the other day." "Oh yeah? What were they like?" "Ah, well, she had about 7 meters of intestine and 1.5 gallons of blood and..." Whoa. Stop. That's not what I want to know. Okay? And focusing on poetic technique can be a bit like that. As Wordsworth put it, we murder to dissect. We start pulling things apart to see how they work and end up destroying them. Focusing on technique before we've experienced the pleasure of a poem can kill off any pleasure it might have offered us, and, as I also said in the first video in this series, if it ain't a pleasure, it ain't a poem. So, does that mean we should ignore poetic technique altogether? I don't think so. On the contrary, it can help us to appreciate the poet's skill in putting the words together. Done properly, the study of technique can deepen our enjoyment, but we need to do it the right way. Everything I've said so far in this series has been geared towards developing ways of approaching poetry. I've suggested that we could do things like envisage the images the poet uses, think about the poetic voice, who's speaking and who's being spoken to, and think about the balance of positive and negative, the tension of opposing elements. All of these things help us to develop a relationship with the poem, to invite it into our heads and let it speak to us. It's really only after we've done that we should begin thinking about the technical aspects of the poem. We might feel that the poem makes us sad, so we could explore what the poet did to make us feel that way. Or maybe it made us thoughtful or happy or even angry or something else. It's only after we've actually experienced what the poem makes us feel that we can begin to ask how it makes us feel that way. Doing it the other way round doesn't make any sense, and it could turn us off poetry instead of increasing our enjoyment of it. I've made a couple of videos that focus primarily on poetic technique. Take a look at my analysis of Gerard Manley Hopkins' Spring and Fall, for example, or Thomas Hardy's The Voice, if you want to find out more about this. One thing you may notice if you watch those videos is that I don't talk about poetic techniques in isolation. I always connect the technique with the way it functions in the poem. In my analysis of the Hopkins poem, for example, I talk about the way the poet uses consonants. In the first two lines, "Margaret, are you grieving over Golden Grove unleaving?" the repeated g and r sounds create a kind of onomatopoeic gurgling effect. This reinforces the lexis, the choice of words, with golden creating an atmosphere of fullness and richness on the one hand, contrasted with the grieving of the little girl. The sounds of the words help to evoke a rather sentimental picture of Margaret crying at the sight of the falling leaves. By contrast, in the 8th and 9th lines of the poem, Hopkins uses consonants to create a very different effect, telling the little girl that when she grows older, she will not cry for the falling leaves, though worlds of wanwood leaf meal lie, and yet you will weep, and know why. This time, instead of the gurgling g sounds of the opening lines, the poet makes heavy use of the w sound, creating a very different atmosphere, suggestive of mournful wailing. And again, the choice of words is significant. The sense of colour suggested by Golden Grove is replaced by the paleness of wanwood, a word made up by Hopkins to suggest the wan, grey quality of the autumnal woods. As I say, you can watch videos like these that I've already put up on YouTube and which I'm adding to regularly, which will help you to understand how to appreciate the various ways in which techniques are used to help create the tone and atmosphere of a poem. And if you really want to explore this in depth, then that's a new series that I'm working on, Teaching Poetic Technique in Depth. It'll tell you everything you'll ever need to know about how poets put their words together.